Hello, everyone. Welcome to the UpRev Ninja Podcast. If this is your first time listening, thanks for joining us. This show is produced each week with the single intent of discovering the tips, tricks, hacks, and lessons learned from our guests that has catapulted them into living the best version of themselves. Join your host, Tom Hudson, as he continues his search for the best methods to UpRev his life. Now, let's dive into the show.
Hey, welcome to episode number 22, Filling the Fills with Emily Chadbourne. Hey, today on the UpRev Ninja podcast, I'm interviewing Emily Chadbourne, who's an expert in love. She has traveled the globe to find out everything she possibly could about what makes men and women tick. Now she shows others how to date, heal, and have the best kind of relationships they can. Emily's no BS approach and honest accounts of the real world of dating are often hilarious and always valuable. Originally from London, Emily now lives in Melbourne, where she works internationally as a coach, author, and speaker. Welcome, Emily Chadbourne, to the UpRev Ninja podcast. Hey, welcome, Emily Chadbourne, to the UpRev Ninja podcast. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me.
You know, I'm super excited to talk to you today because there's a lot of stuff that the field that you're in is actually, I used to be in that field, and when I first started this podcast, I was like, should I go in that niche? Should I talk about that stuff, dating and everything? But I'm like, no, so I didn't niche it down to the point where it hurt. And I'm going to find out if that actually helps me or not. But why don't you tell us a little about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
That's so funny. I hadn't realized that you'd sort of started out in that space. It's a conversation for another time, probably, for us.
Absolutely.
But, I think, like everybody else on this planet, I'm a sucker for love and connection. And I think they are core human needs. And I think they separate our sort of spirit and our animal. And we are, to some extent, spiritual beings. And I think I craved that. And I think I got that really unresourcefully from lots of different vehicles, through drinking too much or associating with the wrong people or, desperately looking for love. And it got really depressing. I mean, how depressing is that? Searching constantly for something and never really feeling fulfilled or connected. And that was just rubbish. And I think a lot of us do that sort of unconsciously, really. We just go through life craving and looking externally for validation of ourselves in such a way that society has sort of accepted that it's okay that you go out and get trashed on a Friday night in the pursuit of going out on the pool to try and find a man to make yourself feel better.
Right.
And I think a lot of us do that. And I'm not dissing it. I did it for a really long time, but it got really, really tiring. And yet another broken heart later, I kind of woke up and looked at myself in the mirror and thought, actually, I don't really like who I am very much. And so I set about changing that because I had to. I couldn't continue just plodding along the way that I was plodding along in my early 30s. And then I just started talking about it and really got into personal development, really began to learn to love myself. I know that sounds horrendously cliched, but, it's a cliche for a reason. Everyone is saying it for a really good reason. My entire life changed, everything. I was not a business owner, believe me, 4 or 5 years ago. There's no way I could have imagined that I would own my own business. I just wasn't that person. So everything changed. And, now I have, no one's got a perfect life because, let's be honest, we're all human beings. But yeah, I've got a beautiful partner. I've got a fantastic business, and I have huge amounts of love and connection on a really genuinely authentic level in my life. And I teach other women how to have that.
I think that's fantastic. One of my earlier episodes, episode number 8, I had Amber Renee on, and the title of the show is Getting Married to Oneself, because not necessarily a similar trajectory, but she got to a point in her life where she was like, I need self-love before I can take care of others. And because it is that external validation, and I've been there myself. I grew up very, I don't know, very Texan, emotions weren't necessarily shared a lot, especially being a man, and, boys don't need love and affection and all that stuff. So it was very difficult for me. Yes, totally. It was very difficult for me to build that emotional maturity until I got older. But I very much like you, I was in my 30s when I started doing all this self-development. But, I went down the whole scary pickup artist, side of things. And I learned that stuff was all about lying and manipulation. It wasn't about trying to make yourself a better person. And once that light bulb clicked, or actually none of it ever felt congruent with me. And I was always like, this just isn't right. And I finally found a group that I was just fell in love with, and I'm still connected with them today. But, they got me to where I am today. So not that this interview is all about me, but what about you? How did that transformation, it didn't happen overnight.
No, it didn't happen overnight. And I actually think you raised a really, really lovely point there. No, it didn't happen overnight, and it does take time. And there has to be some kind of point, I think, when you realize that going out and trying to convince another person to love you is completely futile. And that's what pickup artistry is. And look, do you know, so I'm going to talk really candidly now, if that's cool with you.
Absolutely.
I'm as real as it comes. There's no real bullshit at all. What you see is what you get. So I'm quite transparent. And I think some of my best marketing campaigns are the ones where I shoot out images and resources like, say this and have him chase you.
Right.
Every time I send that lead magnet out, my list grows. People want to know what to say to make someone else like them. And it's very interesting as a business owner who has to, of course, I have to take into account, again, let's be real, I have to take into account marketing and sales.
Right.
If I was crap at marketing myself or selling, because I'm a coach, you pay me money for my services, I'm selling, of course. It's not sugarcoating this shit. But it's been very interesting for me not to try and stay away from marketing in that kind of pickup area or that kind of ethos of pickup, which is, manipulation, really.
Yeah.
And I think there's a fine line between influencing another person for a really beautiful relationship. I influence my partner influences me. It's impossible not to. And it's about learning to influence the amazing, gorgeous, phenomenal bits of another person, not how can I influence in a manipulative way to get this person to like me. And that has to start with, I love myself enough to do that. Someone said to me once, this was a couple of years ago, and this is before I met my partner, and it didn't really resonate with me. And they said this, they were like, you cannot love or be loved more than you love yourself. And I kind of sat with it for a while, and I was like, okay, mulling it over. And since I met my partner, that statement for me has become my everything. It's how I now live my life. My partner and I we have this ridiculous thing where we say to each other, you need to go and you need to love yourself more today because I want to love you more today.
Oh, wow. That's powerful.
And I think if you can get yourself to that place, that's when you can have that type of relationship. You cannot have that type of relationship with another human being if you have not and are not continuing to do work on loving yourself. It's impossible.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's all about being authentic rather than, being vulnerable and, stepping out of your comfort zone. It's when you do those, tactics, and I think, the thing is we're humans, and we absolutely, pretty much every human I've ever met loves simplicity. They want the magic bullet. They want the 3 steps to being a millionaire, 3 steps to find true love, 3 steps, they want the simplest way to achieve their dreams. And I wish I could write a book that said 3 steps to X and you could get it.
Absolutely. 3 steps to true love.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, the funny thing is I probably could hide away for a month, think about who you are. That's step 1.
Yes,
Step
absolutely.
2, put the plan together of who you want to be. 3, execute. There's nowhere in there about another person. So
No, not at all. And again, to pull it back to the point I was making about marketing, it's interesting to be, I'm really sort of shying away from the term dating coach, because dating is a process. And do you know what? Here's the thing. There are tactics and there are things that you can do to influence another person.
Yeah.
There are ways to say certain things in order to build attraction. And I can teach that. I mean, you could go and read as many books as I've read and, gone on as many dates as I've gone on, and you would have the same experience. It's, I get the techniques, but they just land on nothing if they're not held up by substance.
Right.
And if they're not done congruently. And so it's quite interesting to try and sort of market that, I can give you the magic words to say, but actually, if you really want to come and work with me, you've got to come and work on yourself.
Right.
That's the big magic pill that contains all the other magic pills.
Well, so what do you think when you woke up that day and you're like, oh, this isn't necessarily who I want to be or the person I want to be? What do you think woke you up that day? Or what do you think was holding you back?
Well, there's a funny story attached to this, and it's not my finest hour.
We all have these stories.
You are gonna see such a side to me now, Tom. Are you sure you're ready for this?
I'm absolutely Emily.
Well, I'll try and make it not quite as gross as it actually was. So it was the day that my ex-partner, broke up with me. I came to Australia with him, and we were together for about 4 years, and things hadn't been right, and we kind of sat down and had the conversation, and he said, I just don't want to try anymore, Emma, I'm just done. And it was done very lovingly, and a little bit of shock and sadness. And the next day, some great friends of ours were having an engagement party. And we knew that us breaking up was going to be quite a big thing. And we didn't want everyone at the engagement party to be talking about that and not the engagement, right? We're thinking we're being like really sensible adults. We're like, oh my God, look at us being all adulty. La, 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 la. So we decided not to tell anybody. And of course, what happens when you're in a kind of highly emotionally charged state and you go to an engagement party where there is free champagne being thrown in your face on a consistent basis, this white girl here gets batshit crazy drunk. And it was not, like I said, it was not my finest hour. There was an argument. Someone said something about screaming like a banshee, I think, were words that were uttered about the description of it. Not my finest hour. I ended up having a huge, massive argument with my ex on my friend's front lawn at their engagement party. And to be honest, it's a little bit hazy. And I think the thing for me was waking up the next morning and just being utterly drenched in shame. Utterly. And shame is the lowest frequency you can vibrate at. It's just like, devastated by my own behavior. And there is another part to that story where I throw up in my hair, but that is we need to have a beer in our hands for that part.
We can cover that.
So I think I'll just leave it there. I woke up the next morning and just looked at myself in the mirror and was just utterly disgraced by my own behavior. And I did not want to be that person. Who is that person? I didn't even know her. So that was the point where I thought it has to change. And actually, do you know what I realized? I was looking at myself in the bathroom mirror. I remember this moment so clearly. I remember looking at myself in the bathroom mirror and thinking, every argument I've ever had with another human being, every time I felt anxious around people, every shit relationship I've had, every good relationship I've had, every mediocre friendship I've ever had, the common denominator in all of that is me. And I can change me.
Right.
I have the power to make that difference. I can't change all the other people. I can't change all the other stuff, but I can completely change me. And that's a real fucking responsibility. It can be immensely overwhelming. I remember feeling completely relieved that I had the power to change it, and equally completely overwhelmed, because my first question was, how? Well, what do I do now? Okay, I've made the decision to change, but, I was 33. You can't just, I had to go and I had to seek other people who were living the type of lifestyle that I wanted to live. I had to get really clear on the type of lifestyle I wanted to live and the person that I wanted to be in that lifestyle. And then I went and found other people who were doing that and hung out with them. And I started immersing myself in their books and their audios and their YouTube clips. I invested thousands of dollars in myself in personal development. I got coached. I started getting really interested in how other people were behaving and how I was behaving and what everything meant. And then I started learning about the law of attraction and started applying some of that kind of stuff to my life. And in such a short period of time, relatively, I'm 36 now, and I've never been this happy. I am so happy. And that's not because I'm a wanker. It's not because I ignore the shit bits of life. It's not because I don't have problems. I've got as many problems as the person next to me. I've just learned how to deal with them in a more resourceful way. And that's all you can ever ask of yourself. And if I can continually wake up and show up as my best self every day, I think I'm doing all right.
I would completely agree with that. And it's so, I was 33 when I started all this, and I would say probably, 35 or 36 is when I felt like I mean, we can always improve, but I felt like that was probably about the age I was when I felt like, oh, I've got this now. And, what's really a shame is, I don't know about you, but I didn't learn anything about relationship skills in my life, in college, in public school, anything like that. So it's like, I don't know. Are you supposed to learn this from your family and friends growing up? I don't know.
I took geography, still don't know where Spain is.
Yeah.
No idea at all. But I took the subject and I jumped through the hoops and I got a qualification in geography. And luckily, I worked quite a lot of time throughout sort of university, part-time in hospitality. So, certainly waiting tables and, making endless vodka, lime and sodas across the bar. It tells, you do start learning a little bit about human beings and about how different people work. And I think that's really where the whole thing started for me. Even before I was sort of 33, I've always been quite interested in other people. And unfortunately, my interest, was very about me. And now my interest can actually be about other people because I'm solid with me. So it's, people are fascinating. Yeah. And the more I learn about them, the more I'm just like, that is amazing. But like you say, we don't get taught very basic skills. And unfortunately, not unfortunately, this is just the way that the world is at the moment. I actually had a little bit of a rant about this on a Facebook Live yesterday. I was talking about The Bachelor, the new season of The Bachelor.
Yeah.
It just started here in Melbourne. And that show makes my blood, it's brilliant TV. You can't get away from that. But the premise of it makes my blood boil. I think it's a very worrying message. I think it's a small part of a much bigger picture of a worrying message that we're putting out to society at the moment, which is so drenched in comparison because of social media outlets. Just constantly flick through Instagram for 3 minutes. If you want to feel shit about yourself, just go and look up skinny Insta models and just start flicking. And you're just like, oh, I just ate 4 muffins and I feel terrible about myself. Like we live in this world, and it's created capitalist world where like, buy this, you'll look prettier. Have this, you'll suddenly be successful. And, I think we're in a dangerous time with self-love and respect for other people, because we are in this new age of communication, and I don't think we've worked out how to harness it appropriately yet.
Yeah, no, I think that goes back to what I was saying, just in regards to we don't even learn how to have relationships. So now you throw in this whole nother, we can't even communicate with ourselves or our loved ones, and now you throw in this whole plethora of, my phone, I've got like 27 different ways to text someone. And it's because you got Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp. It's so
confusing. I'm like, how do I communicate with you again? Oh, was it SMS? Was it DM? Was it PM? Was it 2G4M? just send me an email.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's...
Or even better, pick up the phone and speak to me. pick up the phone and dial my number and go, "Hey, Em, what's going on?" Because it's such a nicer experience for both of us.
It is. And when you're doing that, there's a high chance that the person's not going to be multitasking and you got their undivided attention. Mostly.
Absolutely.
So
mostly,
yeah.
Unless it's your mum.
Yeah,
She's
true.
probably doing 15 other things.
So, Emily, what about when you were going through this transition and working with the coaches and all the reading you were doing and the introspective work that you were doing? What about just advice or something that really resonated with you that kind of like, I don't know, carried you forward?
Sure. I think, so I kind of look at my evolution, if you want to call it. That's a bit wanky word, but I've just used it, can't take it back now. So if you look at that period of my life, I think, two things were sort of happening. And the first was I was learning and developing and growing as a business owner, which was that if you want to shit yourself on a daily basis, start your own business. That's a good idea. It is. You have to learn and you have to grow and you have to evolve, and you can't just learn about business. You have, it's not just about sales or marketing or numbers, or it's everything. The person that you want to be in your business. And equally, obviously at the same time, I was learning about relationships and about people and the reflection then back on self and the triggers that were coming up for me around that, and sort of dealing with them as well. And I think there were lots of parallels in terms of mindset shifts. And I think the thing that changed, I guess, everything for me, and it's the thing that I make decisions based on this. I take action based on this. I think about who I'm going to hang out with, when I'm going to hang out with them, what I'm going to do today based on this. And it is, as I say, runs parallel between business Emily and personal Emily, is who do you want to be? And then stop waiting to be that person. Be that person now. So look into your future and think, what kind of relationship do I really want? Not, I want someone so I don't feel lonely. That's not a good enough reason. What do you want to feel? What do you want to experience? What do you want to share? What do you want to learn about? What do you want to have together? What do you want to create together? What kind of relationship do you want to be in? And who are you going to be in that relationship? Start looking at her. Stop looking at him. Start looking at her. Who is she being in this relationship? How is she rocking up? What are her values? What are her beliefs? And then instead of waiting for the relationship to come so you can be her, be fucking her today. You can be her now. And once you're her, then the relationship will come, not the other way around. And I applied that to my business thinking as well. Whenever I have to make a decision in business and maybe I'm shitting myself a little bit, or I'm worried if I've got enough money to invest in that right now, or whatever it is, I think what would the Emily of 2, 3, 4, 5 years be saying? And then I say what she would say. That's how I do my life.
Yeah, no, and it's perfect advice.
And it's working out.
Yeah. No, I think it's great advice, because obviously what we're doing right now is not working. So you kind of have to think outside of the box and like, how do you do that? And I think just projecting into the future is a great tool and asset that you can use. And it's funny, something my wife and I did when we were first dating, one of our coaches actually gave us this exercise, and one of the parts of the exercise was write down your a 5-year story. So you write, my wife wrote hers, I wrote mine. We went off to separate rooms to do this. And then we came together to share our stories to see if there was any, not necessarily alignment. What you're looking for is like, is there a big distraction? She wants to move to like Australia and I want to move to the North Pole. Okay, that might be something we need to discuss, but you can start to see if there's any things that are like, ooh, you want to have 10 kids and no kids for me. Because there's so many things that when you're dating or getting into a relationship that you don't even know what to ask, or you know what to ask, but you forgot to ask it. But when you start to sit back,
or it changed.
Yeah, totally.
That's the other thing. It's so funny. So often I speak to women or couples, predominantly women, and they know they've had these conversations with these guys 5 years ago. And so they think exactly the same applies, that people evolve and they grow. And actually, if you're doing life right, you are evolving and you are growing. And I think what's if I can add on a little bit to that exercise that you did, and pull it back to this, is that actually what you're looking for in that exercise is to extract the values. So if one of you wants to live in America, but one of you wants to live in, let's two completely different countries, move out of America, actually where you go might not necessarily be a big deal. But the value behind, yes, I want to go on an adventure, that's what's important. And if one of you had said, I never want to move outside of the Americas, and the other one of you had said, I want to go and live in London for 4 years, different values. Same with children. Is it one child? Is it 15 children? We want children.
Right.
It's the value of family. And what will that mean? Let's really think about actually what that will mean, that if we uphold that value for each other.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really beautiful exercise to do. And I think it should be revisited. You should be doing that exercise every single year in your relationship, because if you're not on track with each other, that's what happens when 10 years later, two people look at each other and they don't even know each other anymore, because they've just pursued their own values, or they've compromised their values, and they're just sort of sitting in this monotonous pool of resentment. And I think it's so easily avoided if we learn about emotion and how to express emotion and how to be okay with emotion. And ties back again, doesn't it? We don't get taught this shit in schools. Yeah. And maybe if we did, the world might be a slightly nicer place.
No, I'm in agreement. You're preaching to the choir here. So, well, what do you do now, just in regards to, making sure that you're always the person that you want to be? I
do huge amounts of self-development.
No,
it's never ending, I think. That's the other thing that I've noticed, is that you don't ever get to a point where you sit down and you're like, well, I'm brilliant. Although I do tell myself I'm brilliant all the time, that's part of my self-love practice, but it is a practice. It's like you don't go to the gym once and then you're like, fit for life, pass me the chocolate cake. You don't. You go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week and it becomes a habit and it has to become part of your lifestyle. It's like you don't get to eat one dinner and then never eat again. The beauty of food is that you get to do it 3 times a day. It's awesome. A little bit more sometimes, yes, depending on what's going on. But, it's something that you have to do in order to sustain your body. And I think we live in this world where we are constantly looking about how we can sustain our body or change our body or improve our body. The amount of money that gets pumped into cosmetic products and cosmetic surgery and hair products and beauty products, it is disgusting how much money is spent. They said something, I read somewhere, obviously, great quote, I read somewhere that, if no one bought a beauty product for 24 full hours or gave any money to the beauty industry for 24 hours, there would be an economic crisis. It's just, we put so much money into our physical vessel, and yet seem to be more obese and more medicated than we've ever been, and more unfit than we've ever been.
Yeah.
And yet no one is willing to invest in the same way. People don't seem to be investing in your soul and your mind. And, I have daily rituals that I do every day, like I go to the gym or I go for a run every day. I eat food every day. I go to sleep every night. I meditate every day. I tell myself I love myself every day. I use affirmations in my daily life every day. I continually invest in personal development, personal growth. I do the same things as every other human being does. I sit on the sofa and I fart like everyone else. I eat Cocoa Pops out of a bowl at midnight. I'm a normal human being. I'm not any different to anyone else. It's just that I understand now that if I let my self-love practice slip, everything else starts cascading down around me. It's not, oh, look, I've created this, I'm good now, I can stop with the self-love thing. It is forever. And I've tried stopping, especially in the early days. I think that's when people give up, isn't it? Because they're like, right, yes, I'm going to do this self-love, self-value, meditation, like really get to know myself. I'm going to do it. They do it for like 3 days, after that, and they just, or they start doing it for like a couple of weeks and they feel better, and then because they feel better, they stop.
Right.
And then they go, well, it didn't really work for me. Well, it's because you stopped. It's, so for me, it's a non-negotiable, because everything else around me would start to unravel. My relationship with my partner, which I value as one of the most important things in my world, would certainly suffer, probably first. And then my business would suffer, my connection with other people would suffer, my values would suffer, my bank balance would reflect it and suffer, everything. So it's a non-negotiable. It's more important. It holds up everything else in my life. So I can't not do it.
Yeah, it's like a plant, right? You always have to, water it and, be tender to it and, give it sunshine and food and water and, that just loving, nurturing environment. If you don't, it's not going to last, so.
No.
So what do you do now to kind of, you actually touched on a lot of things there, gym, running, meditation.
Yeah. So I never used to be. I used to be one of those quite annoying skinny girls that could eat like 15 chocolate bars and not put on any weight. The whole of my 20s, I was just fat and tiny. Like my friends hated it. And then when I got to about 30, everything just starts getting a little bit more wobbly around 30, if I'm going to be completely honest. That's what happened. I didn't like balloon in weight, but just all of a sudden, like I moved my arm and then the rest of it followed like 20 minutes later. And I was just like, no, not massively keen on that. So I bitched about it for about 6 months to anyone that would listen whilst eating cake. And then one of my friends was just like, you're a dick. If you're going to do something about it, do something about it. If not, just stop talking about it. It's boring.
Right.
So I went to the gym, and since then, and I'm not a graceful exerciser. It just, I drag myself there and flail in the background, but it makes me feel better about myself. And actually, I do quite a lot of running as well, because I find that a really beautiful way, or sort of active meditation really, or a chance to have a really lovely time in my future. So I do lots of visualization. So when I'm on a run, I've seen myself do my TED talk like a million times in my head. I see myself on Oprah's sofa a million times in my head. I see myself with my partner a million times in my head, and the house I'm going to live in, the experiences I'm going to have, the feelings I'm going to have, the connection I'm going to have. I go into my future a lot, and I find it especially when I'm feeling a little bit anxious and a little bit overwhelmed, I find that to keep me on track and to keep me focused in on the next step of the evolution of the lifestyle I'm creating for myself, sometimes you need to go to the future and say, fuck yeah, this is going to be completely worth it. Because sometimes if you don't have that, if you're just doing day to day, grind to grind, life is overwhelming. You've got to have the dream, whatever that dream is. And it doesn't need to be sitting on Oprah's sofa. It can just be dreaming of, having a mortgage and a husband and a safe job. And, it doesn't have to be this guy thinking that she's going to sit on Oprah's sofa. But if I don't believe it, if I haven't seen it, then how can it ever come true?
I agree. No, it's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I think it's really powerful because you've got this vision and it gives you not just the confidence, but I've been in those situations, super anxious, and I'm so living, like I'm in the present, but it's more in the realm of fear or in anxiousness, all those negative emotions and feelings. But the way that you stated that, you can, and it's phenomenal. It can be like a light bulb, just think about why you're doing that, and that light switch can go off, and then you go in there with such a positive attitude and energy, and you're you're you at that point. Whereas if you would have went in with all that fear and anxiety, you didn't go in as yourself. So
yeah, absolutely. And I'm a massive believer in polarity, huge believer in contrast. And this is something that's really come over me this particular year. 2017 has been a very strange year for me personally, and it really came over me this year, and it's something that I'm beginning to look at more and notice more and see that there's a real beautiful gift in learning about, I call it feeling all the feels. I think we are looking for middle of the road happiness. I'm talking collectively, I'm talking obviously speaking generalizations. I think the majority of people are looking for middle road happiness because they don't want to experience some of the not so great feelings. And here's the thing, if you're not willing to experience the not so great feelings, you'll never get to experience the feelings of extreme joy, because you'll always be foreboding it. Because you have to understand that there is polarity in this world. And if you can be happy, even when shit stuff is happening, even when times are sad, even when life feels like it is falling down around your ears, there is a real art form in understanding that it is okay to feel that shit feeling, with a safe knowledge that because of that shit feeling, you will have to at some point experience the contrast. So something better is coming, even though right now it feels fucking awful. And it's okay to sit there and feel fucking awful. In fact, it's important to. And I think what we do as human beings is we're so scared of that, and that we've been burnt in the past, or, you know, we've got such awful associations to these bad feelings, and we see everyone else, and no one else seems to be having bad feelings. No one else looks like they're being anxious. Everything's working out for everyone else. Hold your shit together. Okay, let's just go to the doctor and get some Valium so that I don't have to feel this shit feeling. Let's go and get a bottle of wine and drink it on the sofa tonight so I don't have to feel this shit feeling. Let's overeat. Let's watch television. Let's numb out. Let's not really lean into love or connection with another being, because that's when you'd experience extreme joy. You only get to experience the extreme joy if you experience the fucking shit bits of life as well, and that you're okay with it. And I think that, for me, this year has been my full lesson.
Wow.
That has made a massive change to my life. It's okay when life is a bit shit. You have to go through it, and the pain is in the resistance to it. It really is. The pain is in resisting problem. People are looking for life without problem, and they've got to stop doing that. They've got to start looking for, well, what tools do I have in my tool belt so that when problem comes along, I can handle it with grace and with dignity, and in alignment with my truest, highest values.
That's fantastic. Yeah, no, seriously, that's fantastic. It really is. And I, one thing that, several things popped up in my mind. I was really, truly listening to you, but one thing that stuck out, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about, you get depressed, so you get that bottle of wine, you sit on the couch with your bucket of bonbons, and then what do? You get your phone. Oh, everyone on Facebook is happy. Everyone on Twitter is making millions. Everyone on Instagram's a skinny girl. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it's even, this has always been a challenge for people since the dawn of time, relationships, but yet we're all here on this planet because of a relationship. It could have been a 5-minute relationship. It could have been a lifetime relationship, but we're all here because of that. And I believe with everything else that's going on in this world, with how instant news is, how we're getting so addicted to instant gratification. I read something, okay, I'll do what you did earlier. I read somewhere that...
yeah, that's a good enough reference to me.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think the attention span of people today is something around 8 seconds, whereas like in the 70s was 8 minutes. I want to say it's I don't care if it's 30 seconds now and it was a minute 10 years ago. That's a huge difference. So, it is changing the way that we communicate and connect with each other. Yeah.
And my observation that it's not doing it in a good way.
Oh, absolutely no. Like when I was dating, if I didn't get, when I was in the dating world, if I didn't get a positive response within like 15 seconds, I didn't carry a stopwatch around, but if I didn't get a positive response at first, and this was after I got happy that I knew it wasn't about me, I knew it was about her. She just, she was wanting something else or whatever. But once I got through that hurdle, I was like, oh, okay, next, and I didn't want to invest the time. And that was a failure on my part. And I eventually got through that. But, that took self-actualization and understanding, hey, wait, like you said, I'm the common denominator here. I'm not getting what I'm wanting. Why not? What in my process is broke? So, Em, thank you for sharing that. I think that was brilliant, very succinct, and It's a great takeaway. So, thanks.
Yeah.
So you touched on this, but I'm going to ask you the question anyway, just to see if I get a different response, or maybe you'll say the same thing. Like you said, we've never fully arrived. We're always trying to be better. We learn new things about ourselves. Thankful for our partners that point things out that we didn't even know about. What is it that you're currently working on right now to try to get you to that next level?
Oh, that's a really interesting question, actually. So I suppose I look at life as like little pockets, and there's always a lesson in the pocket. And right now I feel like I'm in the middle of a pocket, and the lesson really does, other than what I touched on before about, really leaning into feeling all of the feels and being okay with where I am. The other thing is pulling myself back to present. So as much as I was talking about visualization and that kind of comes under sort of some of the more law of attraction stuff that I believe and practice, I think sort of on top of that, there is this real danger that we always want what it is that we don't have yet. And I think you have to be exceptionally careful in this world not to tell the universe and not to continue with an entitlement attitude from the universe. What's next for me? Where's my next big paycheck coming from? Where are my next clients coming from? I need this now. I need this now. My business needs this now. My personal growth needs this now. I need this. I want this. And unfortunately, on the flip of that, sometimes what we do, and again, this goes back to the world of social media and the world of comparison and how we are continually steeped in this scarcity mindset of not being enough, not being good enough, not being pretty enough, not having enough, not being enough. And so what I quite often hear in the language from clients and just the people I observe day in, day out is not being grateful for what they've already got and looking continuously for the thing they haven't got yet. And what we do when we do that is we say to the universe that the universe doesn't hear the negative in it. So all we hear is, I don't want someone who's going to cheat on me. I don't want this. I don't want that. And you're never actually languaging what it is that you do want. And if you haven't done that, how the fuck is the universe going to give it to you? Like, it's just like, that is just very basic thinking in my world, where like, if you cannot tell the universe what you want, it's never going to give it to you. Equally, if you're continually telling the universe that what you have isn't enough, the universe is just going to go, and just put its fingers up at you and be like, no, you've got to be a good person to get what you want. So there is a real art form that I'm learning at the moment, which is just being completely present and knowing that what I have now is enough. And the more I sit in the abundance of what I already have, the more I bring in of that very thing. So instead of looking for my millionaire mansion and thinking, why haven't I got that yet? I look at where I currently live and I sit in deep gratitude for it right now, because right now I have what I want. It might not look the way it's going to look in 10 years, but if I cannot sit in the abundance of already having it, then I'm never going to get more of it. So I think that for me is a practice, which meditation definitely has helped with anyway as a general rule. But I think just being consciously aware to stop every now and then. It's not like a big practice that I do. It's just every now and then, like I'm stopped at the red lights, or I'm just hanging my washing out, or getting milk from the fridge. I open the fridge and I go, I have a fridge and it's full of food. All right, it's not full of food, it's full of beer and nail varnish. But that's not the point. But I have a fridge, and if I wanted to go to the shop and buy some food to put in it, I could do. And I sit in the deep gratitude for that. And as a result, more abundance comes my way, more love comes my way. I'm so grateful for my partner, and I reaffirm that gratitude every day. And I'm constantly thinking, how can I be more grateful for this?
I think I heard a couple of items there. Definitely, just learning to appreciate what you have and expressing that gratitude. We actually have a gratitude board up in our kitchen that it's like a magic eraser, so we just write up there and we clean it off every week or two. And then it's amazing how quickly it fills up. So that's a practice that we have in my family. And
it's interesting, actually. So I'm a massive lover of Brené Brown. Have you heard of Brené Brown? I just want to, I always say I want to be her when I grow up, and then I realize I'm 36 and I am a grown up. So I adore the woman. Massive fan of her work. And she, because I think when you first set out in personal development, the reality is everyone talks to you about gratitude. They say you should develop an attitude of gratitude. And so I think, 4 years ago, I blooded and I was like, I'm going to write down things, that I'm grateful for. And that was how I did gratitude. And then I listened to this Brené Brown thing, an audio of hers, and she was saying, there's a massive difference between an attitude of gratitude and practicing gratitude. She said, I have an attitude of yoga. I have a yoga mat. I never fucking use it. But I've also got some of those ridiculously coloured stretchy pants, which I never wear. But I have an attitude of yoga. I see I see why it's useful. And once every month, I might go to a hot yoga class and not particularly enjoy it and then come home. And that is an attitude of yoga. But to practice yoga, you wake up every morning and you go through your flow. You go to classes. You actually embody the art of yoga. And I think when I heard that, it really made me think about how I have been practicing gratitude. And I had this attitude of gratitude, which was, I know I should be thankful for things. And I would be thankful for things. But there's a massive difference between doing that and just throughout the day catching yourself, I'm lucky. Fuck, this latte in front of me it looks divine. And to begin with, it feels a bit forced. And to begin with, you feel a little bit like a wanker. You're like, I'm so overly grateful for this latte. Come on, it's just a coffee. But do you know what? The more you do it, and you do have to go through those sort of first little clunky, I'm going to be grateful.
Yeah.
But eventually it stops being a thing you start thinking about, and it just becomes the thing that you do. And that's when it really starts bringing in this beautiful, warm feeling, really divine. And again, that is how can you be happy when shit around you happens? And gratitude really is beginning to show itself as a number one contender for me for that at the moment. So that's a process that this year has really, really taught me and is continuing to teach me, and something that I'm beginning to talk more and more about with my clients is sitting in a deep gratitude for what you already have. That doesn't mean obviously you're not aspiring continually to be more and to evolve and to grow and to keep bringing in more and more of the same, but it's about bringing in more of the same, not bringing in what you haven't got.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for love, find the abundance of love that you have in your life, become the person of love, and you will vibrate it in. And I do truly believe that. I see that in action.
I don't know where to go from here. So I guess just kind of wrapping up, I guess. I think everything you've said is spot on, and I couldn't agree with you more.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm a new person. I'm listening to this podcast for the first time. I'm completely overwhelmed with everything that has been said. What parting guidance would you give that person? What step
I would say if you have listened this far and you've listened to this conversation, and there have been some pretty, I guess, it can feel really overwhelming. So here's the thing about overwhelm, right? When it happens, you've just got to laugh. And the more than anything else in this world, I believe that life should be fucking fun. And I don't know what happens after we die. I don't really give a shit about what happens after we die. I'm too busy trying to be a human right here, right now. I've got enough shit going on on this planet right now to worry about what the fuck is going to happen when I leave it. Right. Nah, that is thinking for a different time. I believe that the time on this planet is brief. And I believe above anything else, you should be enjoying it. And that is an evolution and a practice, and I get that. But also, whatever you do today, at some point, make sure that you've belly laughed. That is it. If that is the one thing that you do to change your life, start with that one thing. go and make sure that every single day you surround yourself with someone, whether that is physical contact or whether it's something that you're watching or whether it's a podcast you're listening to or, whatever, some TV program you're watching. Every day, make sure that you belly laugh.
Well,
if you're doing that, you're doing all right. That's my overall advice. And life is scrappy and life is messy and no one is perfect. And you're going to fuck up left, right and centre and you're going to pick yourself back up and you're going to keep going because that's what life is. So don't be overwhelmed because life can only ever be as complicated as you make it.
Well, I haven't belly laughed. I've laughed a few times, but I've had my cheeks are hurting from smiling for the last 50 minutes. So, yeah, no. So I know other than people giving you a call, because that's how you prefer people contacting you.
Yeah.
Seriously, we have a billion ways of reaching out to people nowadays.
Sure. So I'm a massive Facebooker.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, huge. It's my main platform. I'm on there all the time. I love a good live, as you may have gathered, Tom. I love to chat and I love a good rant. So I express myself quite openly and quite freely over on Facebook. So literally Emily Chadbourne. I do have a page which is Emily Chadbourne and That Crazy Thing Called Love. That Crazy Thing Called Love is also the name of my website and it's also the name of a private Facebook group where I answer sort of dating and attraction specific questions in that group. So the lives that I do sort of just through my personal page are much more sort of expansive ways of thinking and concepts, but I answer sort of very specific questions for my Facebook group that Crazy Thing Called Love. So pop on over and join in the chat.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure I put all those in the show notes. So I really appreciate you sharing that and sharing your story. I really enjoyed talking with you today. So many different things that you said that I wanted to give you things that I do in my practice. I'm just going to throw those in the show notes.
Awesome.
Yeah. This was fantastic. I really appreciate your time today, Emily. Thank you for coming on the show.
I really enjoyed it.
So that was a great conversation with Em. She shares with us how untimely a breakup relationship was a catalyst for her to change and take responsibility for. And she says, I can change me. She explains how rather than waiting until tomorrow to be the person you want to be that person today. And she shares how she has and continues to do this. Then we get into fully living her life, but feeling the feelings, where Em discusses truly life and to experience true joy in your life, that you have not to seek and stay in the middle of the road of happiness, but you must experience everything, the good and the bad.
Thanks for listening to the UpRev Ninja podcast with your host, Tom Hudson. Navigate to our website at uprev.ninja today, where you will find additional resources to help you discover the best version of you. While you're there, join our newsletter and join the discussion on your favorite social media platforms. We've got some awesome guests lined up to share with us how they are becoming the best versions of themselves. Again, thank you for listening. Now it's time to go out and uprev your life.